Young and the Restless spoilers. Sally Spectra had been living in a deep state of grief since the tragic loss of her baby girl, Ava. What was supposed to be the happiest day of her life turned into an unthinkable nightmare. She had longed for the moment to cradle her newborn in her arms, but that moment was stolen from her. Elena Dawson, the doctor who handled her delivery, had informed her that Ava had died just moments before birth. A devastating mix of complications, she said, had led to the baby's death. The weight of those words had crushed Sally's spirit, leaving her hollow, a mere shadow of her once vibrant self. From that day forward, Sally had been living in a haze of sorrow. She threw herself into her work, but no amount of distraction could mend her broken heart. Despite Adam's attempts to comfort her, to bring her back to life, nothing could fill the void that Ava's death had left behind. Sally was haunted by the thought of her lost child, a cruel reminder that happiness seemed perpetually out of reach. Elena, the woman who had brought her such devastating news, vanished from Genoa soon after the incident. The once respected doctor had left town, leaving behind whispers of her failure and a trail of unanswered questions. Her sudden departure seemed like a tacit admission of guilt, but no one dared say it aloud. It was too painful, too final. Sally often replayed the events of that day, wondering what had truly happened. Were there more layers to the story than Elena had let on? Nearly a year later, Genoa was abuzz with the news that Elena had returned. When Nate Hastings, her former lover, met her at the airport, he was stunned to see Elena holding a baby girl in her arms, a child who looked about a year old. The sight caught him completely off guard. "Is this your daughter?" Nate asked, trying to mask his surprise with a smile. Elena nodded, her expression unreadable. "Yes, this is my daughter." Nate's mind raced. How was it possible? When had she been pregnant? He had seen Elena leave town abruptly, broken after what had happened to Sally's baby. She never mentioned anything about a pregnancy. Was the child adopted? The questions swirled in his mind, but he held back, too stunned to ask anything further. Despite his confusion, a warm joy filled his heart at the sight of the little girl. He couldn't deny the happiness that the presence of a child brought, but there was something unsettling about the timing. Sally and Adam caught wind of Elena's return almost immediately. Word traveled fast in a town like Genoa, and soon enough, whispers about Elena's baby reached Sally's ears. The unease she had lived with since Ava's death surged to the surface, like a volcano ready to erupt. Something wasn't right. Sally could feel it deep in her bones. The more she thought about it, the more she couldn't shake the suspicion gnawing at her. What if her baby hadn't? Fueled by this newfound determination, Sally and Adam wasted no time. They arranged a meeting with Elena, under the guise of wanting to welcome her back to town. But Sally's real motive was clear in her mind. She needed to see the child with her own eyes. The moment she laid eyes on the little girl, she froze. Her heart pounded as she studied the child's face, her features, her eyes, those same bright, innocent eyes that Sally had always imagined her own daughter would have had. Elena seemed uneasy under Sally's intense gaze, as if she could sense that Sally knew something. The conversation was brief, polite even, but Sally's mind was already racing ahead. She had to know for sure. With Adam's support, Sally discreetly managed to get a sample from the baby, a lock of hair, just enough to run a DNA test. It was risky, but Sally knew she couldn't rest until she had answers. The results came back sooner than she had anticipated, and when Sally saw the confirmation in black and white, she nearly collapsed. The baby was hers. The child Elena had claimed as her own was, in fact, Ava, her Ava. A whirlwind of emotions crashed over Sally. Anger, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. Elena had lied, but why? Why would she take her baby and let her believe she was dead? Adam, sensing Sally's fury, tried to calm her. "We need to confront her," he said, his voice low and controlled. "But we need to be smart about this." Sally nodded, though every fiber of her being screamed for her to run to Elena, to demand an explanation, to take back her daughter. But they needed a plan. They needed to make sure that, this time, the truth would come out, and Elena would have no place to hide. The next day, they confronted Elena. Sally, standing face to face with the woman who had caused her so much pain, struggled to keep her composure. "I know the truth," Sally said, her voice trembling. I know that little girl's my daughter, Ava. Why did you lie to me? Why did you take her from me? Elena's face went pale, her hands shaking as she tried to form a response. I didn't take her, Elena stammered. There were complications. I thought she had died. But after you left, there was a miracle. She was alive, but weak. I didn't know what to do. I panicked. Sally's eyes narrowed. So you decided to take her and let me believe she was dead? You had a year to tell me the truth, Elena, and you didn't. Elena looked down, guilt and fear written all over her face. I was scared. I didn't know how to face you after everything that happened. I left town to start over, to try to forget. But when I realized she was alive, I couldn't give her up. She had become mine. You had no right. Sally's voice broke. That was my child, my daughter. Nate, who had been listening from the sidelines, stepped forward. Elena, what did you do? Why?